Tekiah! Wake up, look around, be aware. Shivarim! Take a deep dive inside your mind, inside your heart, inside your soul. True. Feel the pulse, loosen the constraints from all that is weighing you down. The sounds of the shofar are designed to strive to shock us into awareness, begging us to listen and see the fractured parts of ourselves, jarring us continually until we crack, until we break the shell that has been forming around us all year or longer. The shofar shouts, moans, and wails, compelling us to feel, not think, disorienting us into being. Although the month of Elul, the month that precedes the Yamim Noraim, our days of awe, attempts to prepare us, it is only on Rosh Hashanah where the drama begins to play out. And it is only at the end of Ne'ilah, tomorrow night, when the drama crescendos, and if successful, we emerge feeling a bit shaken and vulnerable, but renewed and rejuvenated. Like a newly hatched chick, a snake shedding its skin, or a baby leaving the uterus, all living things need to leave their comfort zones, leave the warmth and protection of familiarity in order to grow. It's interesting to note that the shorish, or the etymological root, for the Hebrew words shofar and lehishtaper are the same. Lehishtaper means to improve oneself. Thus, the calls of the shofar are designed to push us out of our shells or skins in order to improve ourselves. This is the purpose of Yom Kippur. Did you know that snakes shed their skins 2 to 4 times a year or more while they are still growing? The skin shedding occurs for 2 reasons. 1, to remove the parasites that may have attached to their skin, and 2, to rid themselves of their old stagnant skin that no longer fits their growing bodies. Unlike mammals who shed their skin or fur continuously, snakes shed their skin in... You say that 5 times fast. Snakes shed their skin in a single go. Oh, literally slithering out of their old skin into their new skin intact. This skin shedding is essential for the snake to grow to its full potential. However, the new skin is at first thin and more vulnerable. Think about what happens to our skin after we have a scrape. Once a scab forms, there's a new layer of skin that grows underneath. Then the scab falls off. Our new skin is thin and vulnerable. We must be extra careful to protect it as the new skin continues to grow and strengthen. Our skin is our protective layer, a product of our established ways. It represents the patterns of behaviors and thinking we have habituated that hold us together. So, like the snake, we too impede our growth if we do not shed our old skin. Beneath that shedding, however, is a layer of vulnerability we must accept and manage in order to grow to our full potential. During the Yamim Noraim, we are encouraged to recognize our old skin, the parts of ourself that holds us back or makes us feel stuck. This recognition is essential if we are to get unstuck, thereby allowing ourselves to move forward. So how do we do that? As frightening as this may be, we must first accept that the process of change and growth involves allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. Think about it. What is one pivotal moment in your life that you contributed to your personal growth? Okay, not an easy or a quick question to answer. However, I would presume that most of us would identify moments where we confronted or overcame a fear, accomplished something that required us to take an uncertain plunge, or where we learned a difficult, possibly even painful lesson. These moments could be big or small, like having our first kiss, reading from the Torah, interviewing for a new job, ending or beginning a relationship, or moving your parent or yourself into a retirement living or aged care services. Each of these moments involve putting ourselves out there and taking a risk, moving from the safe and the familiar to the new and uncertain. We had to overcome the risk of failure or being rejected, being wrong or feeling embarrassed or humiliated, or discovering that we made the wrong choice after all. Or we might have even been appreciated, done well, made a difference, and been happy with our decisions. One thing is for certain: if we don't try, we will never know what we could have been. If we don't try, we would stay where we are, and the opportunity for self-growth would be left behind. My friend once told me that when you compete, there are winners and learners. We cannot win or learn if we don't play the game. Thus, being vulnerable gets us into the game and allows us to grow. Stumbling, falling, and messing up are often part of the process that enable us to improve our skills. Sometimes we even need to move backwards to move forwards. Thus, a failure or a setback in one area may permit a win in another. Once we accept that vulnerability facilitates our growth, like the snake, we need to shed our old skin, identify the parasites that cling to us, and let go. How many of us here now are holding on to grudges, to our old or fresh anger or resentment towards a family member, friend, workmate, or our progressive community? How many of us are holding on to our what ifs or why me because of what life has thrown at us? How many of us spiral into questions for which we know there is no satisfactory answer, or contemplate situations for which there is no clear resolution? Why does this unhelpful thinking persist? What parts of us are these parasitic thoughts and feelings feeding on? Self-doubt? Fear of failure? Complacency? Judgmentalism? A misguided sense of responsibility or protection for others? Unclear priorities? Undefined values? We all have our own parasitic thoughts and feelings that feed on the unhelpful aspects of ourselves, which require letting go. Many of us find this process incredibly difficult because it requires us to be vulnerable. The familiar is safe. The unfamiliar is uncertain. What if we put ourselves out there, make a change, and end up in the same place? What if we end up in a worse place? What if we can't do it at all? It's easier just to stay where we are, no? The what ifs win, and we remain stuck. Tonight, we begin this process together. We undertake a very personal exploration of ourselves in the context of community to try to get unstuck. We hope to shed our old protective layers of skin to promote new growth, enabling us to move forward in our lives, creating a sweeter new year. Although this is an individual journey, we are not alone. Herein lies the power of Yom Kippur, the individual process within the community context. Okay, so now that we know the what needs to be done and the why, the big question, of course, is how. The skill of letting go is all about perspective, priority, and action. Perspective. Is the glass half empty or half full? Objectively, there is a glass that has liquid in it. How one perceives that objective fact is in the eye of the beholder. Our perceptions are guided by where we choose to focus our attention. A disappointing school or work-related result, a relationship or friendship breakdown, a job loss, a serious illness, death of a loved one. Each one has varying degrees of pain and anguish. Each one can vary from disappointment to despair, from frustration to hopelessness. Each one is a real and valid emotional response based on an objective fact, or the part of the fact that we have chosen to focus. There's a poem by David Harkins that I often recite at funerals, which I have adapted, that reads, "You can shed tears that she is gone, or you can smile because she has lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that he has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see them, or you can be full of the love that you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live for yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember her and only that she is gone, or you can cherish her memory and let it live on." This poem is all about perspective and choosing to see the good, without denial of the sadness, frustration, or disappointment. We can choose to make the best of a situation and find the good within the bad. This change in perspective can help us let go of the pain and anger and enable us to move forward. Rather than beating ourselves up for not being good enough or making a mistake, rather than being resentful or placing blame on someone else, rather than fetching or harboring anger or feeling helpless about our lot in life or our situation at the moment, we can remind ourselves that we are no better or worse than another. We all make mistakes. We are all better in some areas than others. We have all been knocked around in one way or another, and all still manage to go on, find moments of joy, connection, and accomplishment. We still make a difference in people's lives. On Yom Kippur, we remind ourselves that all people are made in God's image. Sometimes we lose sight of that and focus only on a specific unbecoming traits or upsetting choices that others have made. Only we can choose to see that person differently. It will not change them, but it can change our ability to move forward with the choices that they have made. It's all about perspective. Priority. As we will read in the Torah tomorrow morning, "Hachayim v'hamavet natati lefanecha, habracha v'haklala, uvacharta b'chayim, lema'an tihyeh ata v'zarecha." I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life so that you and your offspring will live. Yom Kippur reminds us that the choices we make and the actions we take can either be life-inhibiting or life-affirming. The Torah reminds us to prioritize life, to make choices that enhance our lives and the lives of others. So when we consider a situation, we can ask ourselves, is our perception of this situation life-affirming or life-inhibiting? Or how can we look at this situation differently to enable a more life-affirming outcome? We can focus on our chronic pain, our annoying boss, parents, or children, the frustration and the lack of fairness that we are living with, or we can accept our situation and focus on what we are able to do given our limitations. This process can help release some of our parasites that hold us back and enable us to let go and move forward. To enhance our lives, we must prioritize those behaviors that encourage our growth and well-being. We must allow time for self-care, including sleep, a well-balanced diet, regular exercise, enough time for relaxation, enjoyable activities, and quality time with family and friends. Okay, so we all know this. But how many of us actually prioritize these behaviors on a regular basis? These choices will not only enhance our own lives, but the lives of everyone with whom we come into contact. And action. Our tradition teaches us that we have within us our Yetzer Hara and our Yetzer Hatov, our inclination for bad and good. Our Yetzer, our inclination, is that part of us that interprets our perceptions of a situation and encourages our actions. Our Yetzer Hara, our bad inclination, encourages us to complain, withdraw, blame, or direct our angers at others, at God, or at ourselves. Although these actions may provide short-term relief, we all know that in the long run, these choices are unhelpful and sometimes cause further problems. How many of us get into arguments with our loved ones, friends, or workmates that focus on who is responsible for causing the problem and getting stuck in the loop of "you always do this," rather than focusing on the problem itself in that moment and the meaning of the relationship as a whole? How many of us avoid calling or visiting a friend or loved one because it's too much work, rather than make the effort, knowing it's the right thing to do for them and maybe even ourselves? After all, what's the point of having a relationship based on guilt and obligation? The Yetzer Hara will encourage us to avoid or abandon the relationship, rather than work to transform it into something meaningful or worthwhile. Our Yetzer HaTov, our good inclination, guides us to see the good and inspires us to act in a way that brings about the best in a situation. Rather than avoiding that phone call or visit, or resentfully making the effort out of obligation, we could choose to focus on the relationship we want, identify a way to be both present and to assert our own boundaries, enabling both of us to feel good about our connection and our relationship. Rather than arguing with our friends and our loved ones, either blaming them or ourselves, we can choose to focus on the way we want to feel in the relationship, the way we want to be treated and the way we want to treat others, and then respond with that in mind. So tonight, as we enter Yom Kippur, let us work to shed our old skins, allow ourselves to be vulnerable, consider our perspectives, our life-affirming priorities, and our actions that allow us to let go, enabling regrowth and regeneration in this coming year. So when the shofar blows at the end of Ne'ilah, we can ask ourselves, are we stuck in our old ways? Or are we open to change and personal growth? The choice is ours to make. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May this be God's will.